There are many arguments that people have used over the years to discourage others from purchasing Bitcoin. One of the more common ones is Bitcoin will never be adopted because it is harmful to the environment. It is a topic that has been debated for a long time, but it needs to be put to rest. To be clear from the onset, we want to acknowledge that Bitcoin absolutely takes a lot of energy to operate, and some of that energy originates from non-renewable fossil fuels. However, we believe that Bitcoin is not only a crucial tool in curing the world's monetary woes, it's also a key piece in the puzzle of solving climate change. In researching this topic, you will often find that those who own Bitcoin tend to believe it is a more climate-friendly currency than what the world currently uses. And those who stand to experience economic loss by the rise of Bitcoin tend to believe that Bitcoin is less climate-friendly than the world's current financial system. But the question remains, is Bitcoin more climate-friendly than the US dollar? Bitcoin is mined and distributed through a process called proof of work. This process does indeed use energy and lots of it. Proof of work is how Bitcoins are mined. People and organizations all over the world mine Bitcoin by allowing the Bitcoin blockchain to use their own computers to process the data needed to operate. This quantity of computational activity is recorded in the form of hash rate metric. Miners contributing to the hash rate can range from tech-savvy individuals who may only be earning a few dollars per day in the garage of their house, to multi-billion-dollar mining enterprises that operate multiple warehouses filled with mining computers earning thousands of dollars per minute. In the beginning, Bitcoin miners would use energy that was most convenient to them for powering the computers that were completing the proof of work. Today, the larger organizations that mine Bitcoin realize that moving their operations to geographical locations with cheaper energy increases their profits, as energy costs are the #1 variable cost for Bitcoin miners. Those tech-savvy individuals who are mining in their garage are reliant on the energy efficiency of the city they live in, and that's it. That's all the resources it takes for Bitcoin to operate as a global currency. Yes, there are varying levels of energy efficiency that are used to mine Bitcoin, but all the infrastructure needed for facilitating transactions, trusting, and storing Bitcoin is already built and fully operational. Now, let's talk about the 10,000-foot view of the infrastructure needed for the US dollar to be a global currency. To maintain the public's trust in the US dollar, the Federal Reserve operates 12 Federal Reserve banks and 24 branches. In addition, 23,000 employees are needed for the US Central Bank to maintain the stability of the US dollar. The US dollar is physically printed, physically and digitally stored, and maintained by energy-intensive systems. To print dollars, the US uses 4 national mints that are located in Philadelphia, Denver, San Francisco, and West Point. At each of these locations, special printers are housed and powered to create billions of notes every year. These mints serve the Department of Treasury, which also contains the Office of Comptroller of Currency, Office of Thrift Supervision, Internal Revenue Service, and the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. 92,115 employees and more than 3,000 vehicles are needed to operate the U.S. Treasury. And while the department has taken significant steps to reduce its energy usage and carbon emissions, it is a massive administrative component of the US dollar that simply does not exist for Bitcoin. Let's also remember that the US Treasury is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the infrastructure needed for the US dollar to trade as a viable global currency. After all, what would the US dollar be without ATMs, local bank branches, banking data center, and companies like Visa and MasterCard that process payments in US dollars? The most sophisticated attempts to compare energy needed for Bitcoin and the US dollar do not include the US military. I, for one, believe that without the US military, the US dollar and US bonds would enjoy much less global dominance and may even be worthless. Do you think the US military uses less energy than Bitcoin? There's no way. But, as I said, there are some reputable organizations who have begun to quantify the energy used by Bitcoin's network, and even a study that directly compared Bitcoin and the banking system. So let's take a look at what they found. In a May 2020 analysis by Galaxy Digital, the total Bitcoin electricity consumption is around 113.89 terawatts per hour in 1 year. This is only slightly lower than an ongoing estimate generated by the University of Cambridge, placing the figure closer to 123.36 terawatts per hour per year. The Galaxy Digital study goes on to generate a number for the banking system's energy usage to be around 238.92 terawatts per hour per year. For context, the entire electricity consumption in the US is estimated to be about 3,802 terawatts per hour per year. Again, these numbers are not perfect and should not be interpreted as such, but they give us an idea of what it takes for a currency to be minted and circulated. For many of you watching this video, this will be the first time you have thought about the impact that currencies have on the climate through energy consumption. For others, you may have clicked on this video because our claim contradicts what you may have heard from media sources or even Elon Musk's Twitter feed. First off, we are thankful to everyone for watching, but we are especially thankful to those who are seeking to have their knowledge challenged. This is a sign of maturity and genuine curiosity. We want everyone who watches our channel to walk away with a more complete understanding of the topics we cover, so we never tell you what to think, but instead show you how we think. This approach carries over to our daily live stream, where we cover Bitcoin's daily price movement and major events that affect Bitcoin. So, as we try to maintain this dedication to objective and balanced coverage of Bitcoin, we were discouraged to find out that some publications were not doing the same. In a 2020 TED Talk by climate researcher Lars Dittmar, Lars explains that a single article in the scientific journal Nature is responsible for mass misinformation. In his 2018 article titled, "Bitcoin's Emissions Alone Could Push Global Warming Above 2% Celsius," much of the data is based on glaring miscalculations that tainted the dataset used to form the basis of the article's claims. Dittmar shows how the authors of the article made two crucial mistakes in their methodology. First, the main author, Camilo Mora, assumed that the level of efficiency in the mining infrastructure would be unchanged through the year 2100. The second mistake was including the CO2 emissions from energy plants where energy for mining originated to calculate CO2 emissions. For example, if a miner was set up in Miami, it would also include Florida Public Utility CO2 emissions into the data. Lars Dittmar and others have brought these gross overestimations to light, but not before this article was cited more than 300 times and the false statistics spread like a wildfire to even some of the most sophisticated minds, Elon Musk being one. Since 2018, a growing resentment towards Bitcoin's effects on the climate still linger in the corners of the internet, as climate fears have continued to be a topic of concern in communities who regularly discuss the future of Bitcoin. One such corner is the website digeconomist.net, which periodically writes a heavily critical piece on Bitcoin to keep the skepticism alive. What's interesting to note is that the owner of Digeconomist, Alex de Vries, is also an employee at the Central Bank of the Netherlands. Giving Alex de Vries the benefit of the doubt about his intentions is not something that most people who own Bitcoin are inclined to do. However, at this channel, we strive to find the positive in everything. As I mentioned before, truth is hard to find, so we must take Alex de Vries' role in the space as a constant reminder that if we want the best currency, it also needs to incorporate in its design what we have learned from the hard work of climate scientists like Lars Dittmar. Now, if you have been holding back on buying Bitcoin because you have concerns about its effects on the climate, you should now know that even someone like me, who has a large majority of their net worth invested in Bitcoin, admits that the energy needed to mine it is significant, but it is less than the energy needed to power the current banking systems, not including the US Treasury, the Federal Reserve, or military. If that's not exciting to you, check this out. One of Bitcoin's superpowers I find cool is that Bitcoin actually unlocks a logistical problem that energy producers have struggled to overcome. For example, there are some remote locations around the world that have a surplus of renewable electricity. Think windy farmland in the Midwest United States or geothermal zones in Iceland. These places do not have the energy demand of a big city that is close enough to use its full potential, and the energy cost to transport it ends up canceling out energy surplus. Bitcoin miners have a natural incentive to move their mining operations to those locations and turn that energy into currency that can easily be sent outside of that location, or invested in more renewable energy stations and research. This type of energy innovation is what many organizations are working around the world to try to use Bitcoin as a force for good in the fight against climate change. So, to wrap this up, does Bitcoin use a lot of energy? Yes, but when compared to fiat currencies, we actually find not only that Bitcoin uses less energy, but could also be used in the fight for a cleaner environment. If you have found this video helpful, I encourage you to hit the like button to let us know you enjoyed it. And also, share this series with your friends and family who might still be on the fence about purchasing Bitcoin.
Hey, you made it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this video, you should definitely consider subscribing because we're trying to help you become financially free in these cryptocurrency markets. And also, consider following us on Twitter @CryptoJeb for more updates on the price of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Peace.